And so welcome. Oh, let me just redo my welcome because the recording started. Thanks, Taylor, for starting the recording. So welcome to the C3 webinar. We run these monthly webinars to help everyone keep in touch with what's going on in the industry and let different stakeholders understand what other stakeholders are interested in and what they're doing. Today we have Robert Bajor, the founder and CEO with Micro-Credential Multiverse. Robert's going to highlight strategies to overcome institutional and business challenges using a skill-based micro-credential ecosystem. And we're also lucky enough to have Adiena Holder, Dr. Adiena Holder, Director of Learning and Development of Skills and Credentials with Walmart. And Adiena will explain the work of Walmart and what they're doing to integrate skills recognition in every part of the talent lifecycle. So thank you both and welcome. This webinar series is brought to us by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and specifically their T3 Innovation Network. So this is the 4 pillars supporting the free flowing of talent and improving the talent marketplaces. So thanks to the U.S. Chamber and thanks to Jason and Taylor who are our champions there. And their sponsors include Walmart Foundation, which you can find at walmart.org, and also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which I think is about to be renamed to the Gates Foundation. So thank you to the sponsors and thank you to everyone involved in helping us put these together. And also my team of cohorts, Jeannie Kitchens, Naomi Boyer, Terry Ma and Phil Barker, who are the cheerleaders and help us make sure that we've got a balance of people coming in and balance of stakeholders. So thank you to them. You'll find as we go through this, we have slides that are kind of written into the record. So there will be a PDF and a recording made available after these sessions. So I'm not going to read these out, but I sincerely appreciate Robert and Adiena, you joining us today. You have a extensive knowledge, and we're really keen to take advantage of learning from you. We're going to start with Robert. So I will introduce you, Robert. So founder and CEO of Micro-Credential Multiverse. You're a visionary leader with over 15 years of experience in education technology. You were formerly a New Jersey State Certified High School Science teacher, and you're spearheading the development of thousands of micro-credential programs and dozens of impactful digital credential ecosystems nationwide. Thank you for your work there. Your prior roles include the technical project manager at Digital Promise, and digital credential evangelist for Bajor, instrumental in this acquisition by Instructure in 2022. So you've certainly been on the leading edge of all this infrastructure and ecosystem. And your commitment to innovation and passion for socioeconomic mobility drives your passion to connect learning and career opportunities. So thank you for joining us, Robert. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Eric. And it's a real pleasure to join everybody today. There's a lot of familiar faces in the room. It's always nice to share a space with you physically or virtually. And I hope you enjoy some of the work that I'm going to present to you today. It's very exciting. A lot of us have been working on this for a really long time. So I wanted my presentation to focus on outcomes more than anything. But I'm a little famous for it. I don't want to just jump right into things. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the why. So without further ado, let's make sure the controls work. All right. So the name of this presentation is Building Trust and Inspiring Change. And my name is Robert Bajor. So I spend a lot of time talking about things like skills, digital badges, digital wallets, skill descriptors, micro-credentials, learning pathways. And you can learn more about my work at microcredentialmultiverse.com, or if you want more info about micro-credentials, go to microcredential.info. So I'm actually going to fly through the first part of this presentation. I want to get right to the success stories. So all of these slides are going to be available offline after the presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to me after. And we spend a lot of time making the slides engaging and delightful, just to capture the attention and the imagination. So first things first, a little bit about Micro-Credential Multiverse. Okay. So our mission statement is to unite learning experiences with career outcomes. And this is really our laser focus at Micro-Credential Multiverse. And like I said, and like Eric said, we've worked with hundreds of organizations to develop thousands of micro-credentials that have been earned by millions of learners in pursuit of socioeconomic mobility, new career opportunities, and being recognized for learning experiences of all kinds. So we've worked with organizations of all shapes and sizes. So the big question here is the why. So it's a great place to start. And here are just a few facts about the current state of the workforce, specifically in the United States. So I've actually had a lot of jobs over the course of my life. Started out as an educator in Elizabeth, New Jersey as a science teacher. Before that, I was working in biotech, in laboratories. And since then, I've had, a half a dozen different roles that one might have at a nonprofit or a small company. And I thought that I was, I had chronic ants in the pants, but actually, the average person in the United States, more than half, are going to change careers between 5 and 7 times throughout their working life. So I'm not alone. And I don't know if everybody else knew this, but approximately 30%, a third, are going to change their jobs this year. So it's never been more important to support career mobility, and all this information is available through the US Department of Labor. I always cite my sources, like the science teacher that I always will be. So if you're ever looking for references, they're always at the bottom of my slides. This is a really shocking statistic here. And in my previous role, I was the vice president of product for a relatively large company, so I can relate with this. But 95%, an overwhelming majority of executives say that it's either somewhat or very difficult to find someone with the right skills and competencies to fill the roles that they need in the time that they need to fill them. So let's just take a quick look at why the skills space is evolving so rapidly. So the first number here is a velocity. So about 1 in 3 of the top US skills requested for the average US job have changed completely year over year. And 1 in 5 of those jobs are brand new skills. So think back to the dark ages, right? January of this year, suddenly AI, breaks into the scene, and suddenly everyone needs some skills and competencies related to large language models and incorporating and leveraging AI. So that's just one example of brand new skills that hit the market on an annual basis. So those two are velocities. The third is an acceleration. So 3 in 4 of those jobs changed more from 2019 to 2021, and the same acceleration can be observed between 2021 and 2023. And this just means that the rate of change is increasing over time. So it's kind of like the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. She ran as fast as she could to stay in the same place. So what are learners doing about this fact? So 6 out of 10 of them, or about 63%, are what we call professional learners. And all this means is that every single year they're engaging in some kind of professional development, online learning, in-person workshops, you name it. And about 3 in 4 adults consider themselves lifelong learners. So that means that this isn't just exclusive to this year. This is the new normal. Folks are used to having to learn new things to account for the skills changes that I just talked about. And we're all about outcomes here. So I was curious how many of those lifelong learners actually see career gains as a result of that annual professional development. And the answer is about half. So about half say that their extra training helped them advance within their current company or get a new job. And I have a little factoid there about Google career certificates, which I actually earned the project manager Google certificate just to see what it was about. And it's actually very impressive. So I know better than to throw a bunch of numbers at people without kind of laying them out. So here are the key takeaways. 1, the learning landscape is fluid. 2, traditional education pathways are really struggling to keep up. So we have to spend more time thinking about those non-traditional pathways in addition to augmenting and complementing those existing traditional pathways. The third is that learners are not just kind of taking it. They're learning, they're already adapting. They're taking advantage of opportunities both online and in person. Most importantly, and I know that Dr. Holder is going to talk about this a lot, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but employers need that agility. So it isn't just the kind of college instructional kind of K-12 side of the house. On the demand side, employers also need the agility that comes with the kind of programs that I'm going to talk about. And then finally, economic resilience really should be the goal here. So if you get at the very highest levels of these conversations, you realize that these kind of improvements, modifications, innovations are really geared towards economic resilience, both locally, regionally, and nationally. And I would argue internationally. So we published this thing called the Skills Continuum, and it frames a lot of the requisite technologies that work together to bring this new future of work into focus. But today, I'm only really going to talk about skills, micro-credentials, and learning pathways. We're going to leave digital wallets and rich skill descriptors alone, just for this very short conversation. So now is when we're going to hit the warp speed button. So I'm not going to define a micro-credential, but if you don't know what a micro-credential is, you're not alone. This is the most popular question I get. Number one, there's a link to our glossary. I put it in the chat. Number two, refer to the slides afterwards, because I went through and looked at some of the best definitions, both nationally and internationally, and created a working definition that you can use to decide, is what we're doing micro-credentialable, right? Can we start to do it? And if we do, what kind of characteristics should they have? Micro-credentials are generally short, rigorous, and aligned. There's a typo there. And aligned with industry and other outside standards. They're also portable. So technically speaking, they should be interoperable, verifiable. Oh, that's interesting. And the answer, and why, is because trust. So the second most important question I ever get is, how do I know if a micro-credential is any good? And there are some things that you can do, some levers that you can pull to make them more or less rigorous, motivational, and embedded with that career currency that's going to allow them to exchange them for a career opportunity or an academic opportunity down the line. Okay, so let's get into the success stories. So some of the work that we've been doing over the past 2 years or so are with folks like the Technical College System of Georgia. And it's a system of 22 technical colleges, and they had some key challenges here. So they wanted their credentials to be high quality, rigorous, valuable, and most importantly, verifiable. So our solution was to work with them on a monthly basis and to engage with them in our training program that we call CORE. And we had weekly meetings, we created tailored training workshops, we developed some strategic documentation and provided technical support along the way to support execution of the program. So what you're looking at right now is the Digital Badging and Learning Pathway Procedure Manual. It is a 70-page comprehensive manual for for-credit and not-for-credit micro-credentials that can be implemented on a system-wide basis. What's in the manual? So first off, these are some of the most important questions. What do we badge? What don't we badge? What are the principles associated with those awards? What are some shared definitions that as a system, we can all agree on and get everybody on the same page? So there's a lot in this manual. I can forward it to anybody in the room if you want to see it. It was funded under federal grant dollars, so it's a public document. But the thing I'm most excited about are the results here. So after about 6 months of working together, all 22 of the colleges were created as verifiable issuers. And then within those colleges, there's over 6,800 badges that they've developed for credit and not for credit. And they are oriented along 52 individual learning pathways, which are the things that get me the most excited. But there are about 150,000 or so awards in, and they're actually going to award their second cohort. So that number will probably double in the next month or so. Best part. Here's a quote from one of the graduates from specifically the Heroes Make America program that has parity in one of their learning pathways. And I think the most important part about that is that learners in the Heroes Make America program have actually achieved a 100% placement rate in well-paying jobs. These are between $25 and $30 an hour, which is the average median wage for folks in Georgia. And this is really helping folks transition from their work in the military, their service members, into civilian jobs. So that was just one of the programs represented by one of the 52 learning pathways, and there's a lot more exciting things to come. I don't know if we have someone from the Micro-Credential Learning Network in the room, but I had the privilege of working with these guys over last summer. and it included a relatively large cohort of colleges in my home state of Texas. And we worked with Alamo College's district, the great Luke Dowden, and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to pull this together. And their key challenges were a little different. So they wanted to facilitate a comprehensive understanding to develop individual strategies for each college throughout the micro-credential learning network. And they really wanted to play on this fact that, you know, we're not in this alone, like we're a network. So there was institutional collaboration and engagement with mentors from Dallas Community College, Houston Community College, and the University of North Texas, who have already implemented micro-credential programs. So not only did they not have to be alone, but there was a lot that they can learn from folks who have already been there. We facilitated the strategic planning process. We created asynchronous coursework online, collaborative workshops in person. We connected them with mentors from colleges who have been there, done that. And then finally, we had some folks in the room who served as subject matter experts for the different things, the micro-credentials, the badges, the pathways, all that sort of thing. So these are just two of the deliverables from that program. One is the online course, which can be accessed through OER Texas. And then the other is an insight guide, which is published online if you want to learn more about the outcomes and the approach. The strategic components of the insight guide specifically include these components. So these are kind of the requisite components for putting a strategy together, especially from a consortia perspective. And the online course really makes it possible to flip a lot of the work and to do it, you know, in 90 days, something like that. So this course, again, is going to be published online. If you want more information, reach out to me after. I'm making pretty good time. The results of the program were pretty outstanding. A majority, 9 out of 10 of the folks said that the micro-credential learning network was instrumental in shaping their future micro-credential plans. Every college created their own individual strategy, and 100% of them said that the program was either excellent or good. So we're all about, you know, results here, basically. We have some quotes from some folks who participated. So if you want to take a look at some of those quotes, you might see some names that you recognize. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and I don't want to go through this too much because Dr. Holder is going to talk about the employer perspective, but we also work with businesses. So Sumo Logic is a Redwood City-based technology company, and they wanted to develop an internal professional development system for upskilling and reskilling new employees and current employees. So it was all about empowering those employees and facilitating a continuous learning and development process while strategically aligning that process to the organization's goals. This is some of our solutions here. This is one of the coolest programs we've done. We used AI in this program actually to scale a lot of the work that we were doing. And the outcomes included both an ecosystem guide and an action plan for the long term. So if you want to learn more about what was in the strategic plan, please refer to the slides. We also created a global instructional and pedagogical model for the Sumo team. This is a little bit of a high-level kind of graphic illustrating how the different individual micro-credential enabled stepping stones can be oriented into learning pathways towards some learning opportunity or goal. We also created a similar model for each program at the instructional level. So unlike, you know, institutions and colleges who already have these sorts of processes in place, Sumo came at this and they didn't have a huge collection of professional educators to guide them along that way. So we did that for them. If you want to learn more about those components, they're right there. One more minute. So we have a few consulting packages that I wanted to just mention really, really quick. We have training programs like Zero and Core. We also make it easy by creating these monthly expert consulting retainer packages. So there's no need to spend a lot of time or money. You can get started right away, and we can figure out what problems you're going to solve and how we're going to solve them for you. So I think that was pretty good, Eric. I timed myself. That was a tight 20. I think it's time for a little bit of a Q&A.
Absolutely, you did a great job. And our friendly audience doesn't know, but you did have a lot of slides, and I was quite concerned you were going to get through them. But I love the way you told the story, and it reminded me of work I've done previously on maturity models, where we see an industry that kind of works on an ad hoc basis. They've got to solve a problem, and there's not much strategic planning in it. So level one of a maturity model is typically just get something done because we need to, you know, put out the fires. And then as you work up the maturity model, depending on kind of whether it's a level 4 or level 5 model, you get to kind of a systemization, you get to into self-healing processes. So processes will help fix other processes. So a question for you, because I love the more strategic approach that you're taking with your clients, and you've explained kind of the problems they're solving, the kind of workbooks that you're producing, the deliverables you're producing. Where would you say people are in a maturity model when we think of a ad hoc at the level 1 through to a kind of self-healing process that's sustainable with it's very much been systemized? How would you see that?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And I actually think I'm going to channel a little bit of Naomi Boyer here. And I'm going to say that the nail it and scale it model is alive and well. So I'm always looking for what problems can we solve right away? And what can we learn from solving those problems that we can scale? So instead of thinking about, a huge systems approach that's going to take maybe a few years to implement, and then you start learning from it, I'm always looking for those quick wins where we can really solve some existing problems instead of deploying technology in search of a problem to solve. Like I always tend to flip the conversation that way. And I think that it also really goes a long way for getting buy-in. So what we're doing is innovative, and there are a lot of, there's a lot of reticence sometimes for adopting the technology and doing things a little different. So if we can demonstrate some quick wins right out of the gate, not only is it a great way to manage a project, and I'm PMP certified, so I've managed lots of projects, Agile, Scrum, all those things. I was a product manager. So getting people comfortable with that way of kind of developing intentional interventions, right? You can't spell intervention without intention. So if you intend to change the system, you have to show people how you're going to do it before you make a big lofty claim about how exactly your technology is going to solve everybody's problem. So that's just the first thing that kind of comes to mind. Hopefully
That's
that
good.
answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, it was great. Thank you. Let's open up the floor. I think Jeannie's in the room, so hopefully she'd be able to check
Yep.
our chat session, which I kind of struggle with.
I am here. Hello. I can turn my camera on too. Yeah. Hey, that was a great presentation.
Thanks,
And
Jeannie.
is a question. Can you elaborate on the package in your last slide? Are you helping clients understand how to create a micro-credential pathway? And that is from Lorraine. Lorraine, you can unmute too. Feel free.
Well, I put it in my chat. I was really interested in that. Like, are you like this is so new. Is this package to, help educate your clients on how they begin the process of creating a pathway?
Yeah, so we're really flexible. So we have training programs, and those programs come in different shapes and sizes. It depends on the team and it depends on the goal. But ultimately, we don't want to spend too much time on the education side of things. We want to get into the strategic planning and the problem-solving process as quickly as possible. So sometimes my clients will bring me on board on a retainer basis, and I'll spend some time, talking to individual groups in search of more of a system level change. Other times we come in and we'll do a training program, and then the team has a much better idea of what problems they want to solve right out of the gate. And then we'll move into that expert consulting model. The one thing that really differentiates, I think, my organization from some of the other folks in the space is we're obsessed with shipping solutions. So we have project managers on staff, and we don't just stop at the strategy. So we help you make it a reality. And I think that's also where a lot of folks get tripped up, is in the execution side of it and less on the education side. And really, as we're implementing a solution, there are new things to learn all the time. So it's a little bit of both. And if we go back to that skills continuum that I was showing you, there are a few different kind of components that interact in these systems. So skills, micro-credentials, and learning pathways are really the big three. And our core program specifically unpacks all of those things in a really detailed way. Examples, best practices. I mean, I've shipped a lot of products myself, Digital Promise, the NEA, so it's coming from a place of experience. Yeah, I've been doing this for about a decade, specifically the micro-credential thing. And before that, I was an educator. So I feel like, you know, I'm uniquely qualified to be like a Sherpa for this. Like, I've been there. I want to take you to the top of the mountain. You're going to go your own way, but you don't want to go alone, and you want to go with someone who's encountered a lot of the, you know, the challenges that you're likely to encounter on the way.
Yeah, Robert, let's just see if we can fit in
Thank you.
another question. Yeah, thanks, Lorraine. Can we, Jeannie?
We have a hand up, and we also have a couple more questions in the chat. If Lloyd, maybe if you want to go ahead and unmute, and then what we can do is, Robert, after you know you do the answer this question, answer the questions in the chat.
Beautiful, yeah.
Oh, we cannot hear you.
Oh.
I think we got you now. Try again. No, we don't hear you. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, darn. Let's let Lloyd go ahead and put that in the chat. Do we have time for one more then from the chat, Eric? Or
Yes, yeah.
okay.
One more.
Alrighty. So from Deanna, curious in learning more on how you incorporated AI to scale. I'm sure this is a tributary that you might not be able to go down today, but I'm very interested in learning more on that. Deanna, I don't know if you want to unmute, say anything else specifically about that.
No, I'd just like to hear what Robert could speak about, but thank you. I appreciate for taking my question.
Yeah, of course. So it's a great question, and I can answer this one really quickly. So during the CU Boulder Badge Summit in August, I actually have a whole badge planning about our use of AI, and I've been developing AI applications for about 3 years at this point. I was kind of an early adopter, and we use AI internally. So we don't sell any products externally, but we use AI internally to accelerate a lot of the work that we do. A specific example is while we were working with Sumo Logic, we interviewed about 70 members of their staff. So we had about 1,000 pages of transcripted conversations with the team. And instead of going through that, you know, it would take forever. It's like a Lord of the Rings epic. We basically used AI and query engineering to distill a lot of the feedback that we got into the primary areas that would contribute to the development and execution of the program. So that's just one example. We also have an MCAI internally, kind of a body of knowledge that we refer to when we're looking for, you know, how does this apply to this individual client or stakeholder? It helps us make sense of things really fast. It also helps us develop content really, really quickly. It kind of gets you past that first 30% where it's just a blank paper staring at your face, and gets us to a point where we can start iterating and making changes to documentation to better suit our clients. So it's more of an accelerant, a writing tool at this point, but there's a lot that can be done with AI, especially with skill and competency libraries and taxonomies. So that's the more exciting stuff. But I'll leave it at that for now, Deanna. It's a good question.
Thank you. And you said you're going to be at the Badge Summit?
I am. I'm doing a whole
Great.
badge explaining thing about it. And I partnered with a friend of mine who does AI ethics for TikTok. And he's going to help me work on that presentation and make sure it's current and engaging and informative.
Awesome. We'll be there too, so I'll make sure to connect. Thank you.
Cool. See you there.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was a great presentation, great question and answer session. Sincerely appreciate it. If you could hang around and answer questions in the chat, that would be great. Also, just to let everybody know, we'll do an announcement with more details about the Badge Summit on a July webinar. And then on the August webinar, we'll have Noah from the Badge Summit will come and do a summary for us. So that's the plan for August. So go in person. It's a lot of fun, and you'll learn a lot. But if you miss it, you'll get a good summary during the August webinar, C3 webinar. So thank you so much. It's a great privilege and honor now to introduce Dr. Adiena Holder. Dr. Adiena, or Dr. Holder, should I say, is the Director of Badging and an 18-year Walmart associate with experience in multiple pieces of the business, including operations, project management, and learning. She holds a doctorate in business administration and leadership. She's been working in the skills and credential space for the last 3 years. Dr. Holder, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. I see lots of familiar names and faces. So really appreciate you all having me here today. And really appreciate you letting me talk about Walmart's skills and badging journey. They really kind of go hand in hand for us. And I will just preface as we begin this slide presentation that we're really on the cusp of this journey. I won't say that we're perfect or that we have it all figured out. I think many of you have had conversations with me and know that we're really on the cusp of this journey and that we are working towards these things. But if you have any questions around where we're at in this journey, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I'm happy to kind of tell you where we're at and kind of where we're heading as it pertains to all of this work. So we'll just kind of talk about what our associates are asking for. So they're really asking, you know, how do I get where I want to go? How do I navigate my career? What does it mean to understand where my gaps are? How do I get to that next level? Our leaders are struggling to understand what those gaps are of their associates. How do they find the most qualified associates? The world is moving so fast. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to make sure that we have the most robust pipelines of talent. And so really to win Walmart as a whole, we need to know what the skill gaps are across our businesses and our functions. We need to really be able to determine whether we need to build, buy, or bought the talent. Because in some instances, really, it just makes sense to do one of those things. And it really depends on what that thing is as to which avenue we need to take. And then we really need to understand from a talent selection avenue and identification of promotions and development decisions, how we can best do that. And the underlying infrastructure of all of that, we've decided really needs to be skills. And so we started on this skills journey and are really trying to layer that into our talent ecosystem. And so really what we're doing is we're starting with something that's been around forever, right? Knowledge, abilities, and traits. But you've noticed that there's a plus to the skills component. And we've also layered in motivations and interests because we believe that it's not just your knowledge and abilities and traits that get you what you need, but it's also your motivations and interests. And so we're trying to make sure that we account for those as we look to what's your next step, what is the way that you're going to develop yourself. And so we're trying to account for that in this talent ecosystem that we're building. And then we believe if we have all of that accounted for you as an individual, that will then layer up into those behaviors, then to the competencies, then to the capabilities, and then that will actually provide us to those business strategies. And we are working really closely with our business partners to determine what are those business strategies that we're really trying to develop and go after first to make sure that we're providing the best business value to our customers and make sure that we're aligning to our overall business propositions to make sure that we are overall aligning to our overarching strategies just to make sure that anything we're doing from a learning perspective and a talent perspective really kind of underpins that. So I know Mark, I presented at the One Ed Tech conference a few months ago, and a lot of folks asked, you know, educational institutions are saying businesses aren't telling us what we need, et cetera. And I said, I feel like educational institutions, I'm kind of like the education arm of Walmart. Oftentimes businesses just want to know that the outcome that they're trying to drive is being met, that's what they're missing. And so that's what we're really trying to do from a talent ecosystem perspective, is make sure that we're driving those outcomes for our business partners in our operations arm of Walmart. And so that's where we're really trying to drive that pyramid. And so we've kind of defined this a little bit further. I won't belabor this, but really just kind of defined this a little bit further on what skills are and how they ladder up to those behaviors and competencies. And so then we really took and decided, how are we going to do this? So we wanted to make sure we really took skills and put it into these different places along the talent ecosystem. So into our job architecture, then into our job profiles and job postings, then into our associate profiles, then into our talent profiles, and then finally into our learnings, and packaging up those learnings into micro-credentials or badges, and making sure that skills are a part of those as well. And so you'll see that we have kind of this whole ecosystem planned out where the skills are really a part of every part of that talent life cycle, where you can see where skills can go into workforce planning, and it's what skills are we needed for the future. Then it goes into succession planning, then it goes into development. Then it can circle around into potentially into compensation, and potentially into what do we award for specific skills around performance or potential. How does that funnel into selection or performance or talent identification? And we really want skills to be in every part of that talent life cycle. And as I mentioned, we are nowhere near it being in each one of these ecosystems, but we're actively building how do we do that in each one of these components as we speak. I actually left a meeting right now where we're building it out, some of these outcomes, and actively working on our roadmaps for each one of these components. So it's really, really exciting work here at Walmart, and we're really excited about what the future holds, but we're really trying to target it to some specific roles first, again, trying to drive those outcomes for our business partners first, and then figuring out how we can scale it across the company. And this slide is a little bit more of a deeper dive into how do we do that from a problem statement perspective. So first is the data management and governance. So we want to make sure that skills get layered into those job profiles, those positions, those job ads. You may have heard announcements that we made near the beginning of this year that Walmart was removing degree requirements from many of our home office roles and replacing those with skills. And that's where the number one foundational problem statement came from. We know that many of our home office jobs do not require a college degree. And so we want to remove that as a requirement and replace skills onto those job ads. And so we're actively working on that as one of our number one priorities. And then it's how do we change the job and the position profiles to reflect the same? And then it's how do we make sure our candidates and our associate profiles, meaning their internal profiles, reflect the skills that they have. Then it's matching them and being able to say, once we know what skills they have, being able to match them to positions that they want to have and then it's developing them into the roles that they would like to have in the future. And then finally, it's workforce planning, strategic workforce planning, to the roles that we need for the future. And so we're really excited about the work. It is a lot of work. We know that it's going to be kind of a multi-year journey, but we're really excited about all the work we've done so far and where we're headed with respect to the skills and how we're bringing the value back to our business so far. Then it comes back to how do we validate it? So Robert talked about micro-credentials, and that's where my excitement comes into play because I've been working on micro-credentials for a while, but one thing that we haven't attached to it yet is skills. But that's something that we do plan to do, is attach skills to those micro-credentials or those badges. And this is kind of our framework on how we want to make sure that those skills are validated and what we need to have from an assessment level. So some of our lower risk or not essential skills, we may allow for like a self-declaration of that skill, like singing. We may allow someone to say, yeah, I'm good at singing. At Walmart, we don't really care if you're good at singing. Like that's okay. We may allow you to say, yeah, you're good at singing. But if we want to actually confirm that you're good at a skill or that it's preferred or essential for your role, we may introduce a manager observation or a SME or on the job observation, like the badges that I have today in our hourly population are observable badges by their leader. And so those are ones that are observed today, and we want to trust that those leaders have actually signed off on their badges. And then as we want to kind of have more confirmation that they have actually earned their badges, we may turn to an external accreditation or computer-based simulation or assessment. And those are going to be for our higher risk badges and those that we want to make sure for absolutely positive that those folks have earned those credentials. And those may be for things like food safety assessments and things along those lines. So those are things that we are actively working on. And I've actually talked to numerous of you on this call about a lot of these things. So I'm really excited about the work we've done so far and the space that we are in today with respect to all this. And I think that's my last slide.
Adiena, thank you so much. That was very great. It was a great presentation. And I think, like you, I'm very excited by the work you're doing because you're bringing everything together that we've waited for years to see, not just within Walmart, but across the ecosystem. And seeing it come together is very impressive. So congratulations. And hearing that L&D partnering with the business is so strategic that sometimes L&D can be in their own world and forget they're actually servicing the needs of the business. There was two questions. One question is about this slide, and then I'm going to hand to Jeannie to pick up the questions in the chat. Do you provide any visual distinctions between these low risk tasks and the high risk, or the badges you're allocating for low risk and high risk? So can somebody see and go, oh yeah, that's been externally validated, or this is just a self-reported badge?
Yeah, so we don't have any self-reported badges. I think that is a great question, though. So from a skills perspective, we are allowing for our associates currently to self-report skills, and we are making a distinction there where they're self-reported skills, and we will have validated skills coming from credentials. And so there will be a visual distinction there, but not necessarily self-reported badges.
And last question before I head off to Jeannie. I was so impressed when we talked to each other a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago, about your journey. And I think to me, it was a great, within Walmart, it was a great tribute to how Walmart kind of develops its associates into managerial and leadership positions. So could I just ask briefly that you share a little bit about your story and how you've grown within Walmart?
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, I'm an 18-year Walmart associate, and I started out as a temporary garden center sales floor associate while I was in college. And I never thought I was going to work for Walmart for the rest of my life. I actually wanted to be a veterinarian. And I, through my college career, decided that Walmart was actually the place that I wanted to be after I was attending school, and it just didn't fill my needs anymore. And even though I have achieved numerous degrees after that, I have earned a lot of knowledge through Walmart, even without some of these underlying structures that we're working to put in place now. And Walmart has afforded me the opportunity to always learn something new and do it on the job. And I think that that's something that not every company allows you to do. And that's pretty unique. And I think the structure we're trying to put in place now will even further that, which is, in my opinion, something that we couldn't pay money for. And I don't know that our associates could pay money for it either.
Yeah. Well, it's a great story, and a great tribute to Walmart for developing its people that way and making these resources, and now with these skills-based initiatives, it's very, very impressive. So with that, let me turn to Jeannie for questions coming in on the chat.
Thank you, Eric. And yeah, thank you for the fantastic, enlightening and very encouraging presentation. Chris Houston, you put in 2 questions in the chat. With removing degree requirements, how are you able to understand what skills an individual has without the verifiable proxy? Second question, are you relying on trusting the candidates and the skills they say they have?
Yeah, so right now, yes. We are trusting them with the hopes that we'll be able to consume credentials from other places at some point, like verifiable credentials at some point. But also just being able to infer skills from resumes, because at least it's something, right? But yes, currently right now, what we're trying to do is just at least being able to infer them from resumes.
Thank you. Chris, if you have anything else you wanted to say, go ahead and unmute or raise your hand. If we don't see that, I'll just go ahead and move on to the next question in the chat.
That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. And this is from Sudesh. This is a really great question. Asking, is Walmart altering job descriptions or adhering to a specific standard for the job postings and the shift towards skills-based hiring?
I'm not sure I understand the question fully. So we are essentially leaving the job description as is, but inserting skills, if that answers your question. If it doesn't, if you want to come off mute and ask it or clarify.
Yeah, thank you for taking the question. Mainly like as we are moving towards skill-based hiring, right? The standards that we use for different industry for job posting, and also like acquisition of the talent over there to specific. So there will be a huge gap between then. Also, I heard about degree removing and all that. So are we looking at like changing the the way we post the job and the way we, describe the job posting and all that?
So in Walmart, our job description is a little bit different than our job posting, so that may be a little bit different too. So our job description is typically the more of the like legal piece of it, and the job ad is more of like the marketing type material, and we could always edit that component. And so we're not necessarily editing the job description, but we are adding skills to that, and removing the degree like requirement there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I believe still we are issuing many credentials, different skills, and the standards used for skills and all. And I'm just trying to find out like if there is like, will there be any gap? Will there be any like, if we use a specific standard across the industry, I think that will be an ideal for future. That's just thought.
Yeah. And honestly, from a standard perspective, that's one of the reasons why we've joined the One Ed Tech Consortium is to try to keep up with what the standards are, so that we can be interoperable with the educational tech.
Got it. Thank you.
Another aspect of that, if I could just jump in, is the how trustworthy are micro-credentials. So I think it was last month we had someone from ACE talking about the checking the micro-credential is worth its salt. And then next month we have somebody else talking about whether the organization is qualified to issue micro-credentials. So I think as time goes on, we'll find ways to know the value of a micro-credential, because the value the micro-credentials I've issued to myself are not really worth the paper they're written on. With that, I'll pass back to Jeannie.
Okay, looks like we have time for another question. We have one from Noah. Are you still doing levels at Walmart?
So we've collapsed a lot of the levels that you're talking about, just from a complexity perspective. But that's a great question. It got very complicated very fast from essentially how you pay people and keep up with it. But that is a great question.
Thank you. And here's another from Giselle. And this is for both Robert and Adiena. Is industry and higher ed getting closer or further apart in their silos? Love to see a glossary for both.
I don't know if I'm the expert that can answer that question. I'd like to say maybe closer together. That's the hope. But I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Giselle. So when I think about the institutional side and the employer side, I'm really thinking about the supply side and the demand side, with skills being the exchangeable economic units. And I think that there are things kind of pushing these different groups into alignment. Part of that is policy, part of that is technology, and part of that is culture, frankly. So Dr. Holder talked a little bit about this, but there are real competitive advantages associated with adopting this strategy. And we've seen the consequences of those things during COVID, right? Like those small points of friction in the talent pipeline can get, orders of magnitude worse. And we're living in a turbulent time. So I think that there are different incentives for different stakeholders to align themselves. And some of the most exciting work happening nationally is happening in regions. So like Kansas City specifically has a really great series of credentialing and skills credentialing oriented programs for healthcare and for getting folks directly from K-12 into the workforce, connecting them with community colleges. So there's a lot of really exciting work happening, and it might depend on your region. I would argue that there's still a lot of opportunity in rural districts specifically, but I could go, this could be its whole conversation, but it's a great question, Giselle. Thanks so much.
Jeannie, do you have a quick question or should we wrap up?
I think we could wrap up, but it is notable that it really encouraged a lot of interesting conversation in the chat. So thank you.
And I should have said at the beginning to feel free to exchange your contact information in the chat. We can, if you want to connect with people, it's a great way to do that. Or we could connect you after the sessions if you need. You can email me at eric@talenttransformation.com. So thank you to our speakers. Just a fantastic job. And I think my supplement to the answers to Noah's question is that at least we're starting to speak the same, use the same vocabulary. So I do think that we're coming together, and part of the C3 mission is to help increase those conversations between the different stakeholders and the different silos. So next month's webinar will be Chad Patton and Marlene Bronstrom from the Michigan Workforce Development, and also Kelly Page, Phil Long, and Nate Otto with the T3 network, and they will be representing their LER guide and library. It's a fantastic resource, and it's going to be well worth that will be well worth the paper it's written on. So we're looking forward to their presentation and representation on that. So I will just leave you with a couple of QR codes. The PDF of this will be posted up to the T3 resources. And we also have a LinkedIn group that you're welcome to join. And so thank you again to all of our contributors, and we'll look forward to seeing you on next month's webinar. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye all.
Thank you.
And we've given you a minute back in your day.